more than 100 unique styles of beer, each with their own set of ingredients, process, guidelines, history, and experience. If you're a beer lover, an industry leader, or somewhere in between, a better knowledge of beer style will improve your life and your work.
Welcome to A Sense of Beer Style, essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. I'm Julia Herz.
And I'm Jeremy Storton.
We're advanced Cicerones, beer judges, home brewers, and we're excited to guide you through the vast and wonderful world of beer styles. Hello and welcome everyone to another show, Stylecast awesomeness of Sense of Beer Style. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, Julia. Hello, everyone.
Yes. Hello, everyone. You are joining us today for specialty IPA, Red IPA as one of those specialties. I love a good red ale, a good amber ale, and Red IPA takes it up a notch and does a great job with American IPA and making it a little more caramel, toffee, a little more malty focus, but in the spirit of IPA, which is certainly one of my home base wonderful styles.
And just to kind of share a little bit of that too. I mean, I love a good IPA, but I love all beers. So when I first discovered a Red IPA, which was actually the Dawn of the Red from Ninkasi in Eugene, Oregon, I thought, ooh, what's this? Because at that point of my beer journey, I'll admit I was getting a little sick of IPAs. And I think a lot of us pros were getting a little sick of IPAs back then. And when this came about, I thought, what's a Red IPA? And as it turns out, I learned that I love malt. I love the malt complexity. I'm a malt head as opposed to a hop head. And this one just added a strong backbone of malt to this strong, assertive hop flavor, kind of reminiscent of a British IPA, but this was very, very, very American. So frankly, this of all the IPA styles, this is one of my favorite. And so this is going to be fun. I can't wait.
I agree. So why don't you take
yeah.
us into ingredients?
Let's talk about ingredients. I love how the BJCP guidelines says, basically take the IPA or the American IPA recipe and then add this to it. What we're really talking about is, we're always going to start with base malts no matter what, but we're going to talk about a pale malt or American two-row. But to give it that red color and the flavor associated with that red color, we're going to start adding some crystal malts. It could be anywhere from a 60 Lovibond, maybe even up to 120 Lovibond to really give that color, that flavor, and it's all going to be mixed just right. So it is going to come out as a red flavor, as a red color, as opposed to like an amber or a brown. And that's just really where this style got its name. You can, I've heard of people using some kind of more toasted malts, but very judicious because we don't want to turn this into a piece of burnt toast either. They can use some sugar adjuncts to really get the alcohol up if they're heading in that direction. And because this is more of an American style, probably brought about by the home brewers, give it up to the home brewers because they're the ones who do all these creative things and the commercial brewers respond. So we're typically going to see American hops, New World hops to get that citrus, that forest, that tropical. And same thing, we will very likely see American ale yeast, maybe some British ale yeast. But all the ingredients are meant to work together in harmony. That's the ingredient list that kind of on the average for this style. Let's talk about the appearance since you just poured your beer. I'll try and catch up if I can.
And this example that I've got from Boulder, Colorado is beautiful. It is displaying a very robust collar of foam, which frankly, should have some persistence, especially based on the style guidelines. Does not have to be specifically white, could be cream colored, which I love. Allows in the appearance for a little bit of light haze. That's optional, but based on hops and American hops, you're going to have some hop haze sometimes. So that's okay. Don't be scared of the clouds. Don't expect clarity all the time. When you do get clarity, it means often that beer was stripped a little bit more of its flavor. It's certainly prettier, a little bit lighter on the mouth, but I like a little bit more body, and actual visible haze is never a big thing to me. You've got the color that's a big component of the style. The notion of red ale, red and amber tend to go hand in hand. So you're going to have it be light amber, right, to more of a dark amber and to reddish copper. That's what we're looking for in the appearance. And it is looking very inviting, I shall say. It's smelling great too. How does yours smell?
Mine smells, honestly, this particular sample that I have smells a little oxidated, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, because I want to talk about the average. But I found, since I opened this beer, I think we have an incredible teachable moment. And so if I can, I want to tag on to your parents. This particular sample, I just looked at the date. The date is worn off. I can't tell how old this beer is, this beer that I happen to have. But when I look at this beer up close, for those who are watching this, you may not see this, but I can tell that there are little particulates in my beer, just like little, for lack of better words, just tiny little chunks. And that's basically a protein precipitate that comes out of the beer when it's a little bit aged. And it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to ruin your day, but it's not desirable. This beer is not going to be fresh. But getting back into what you asked me as far as the aroma goes, I'm going to put a pin on this aged version just for a second. Let's talk about what this beer should be. Because of this, it is an IPA, so we should get just a beautiful note of hops first coming out of the gate, a medium to high aroma of American New World hops. Again, we're talking forest, we're talking citrus, we're talking tropical, we're talking berries. But equally as strong, or almost as strong, I want to get a medium low to medium malt kind of essence, a little bit of caramel toffee. Now, we're not smelling the sweetness per se. You might think sweetness, and that's totally okay. There's a perception of sweetness in there, but we should smell caramel. We should smell toffee. Maybe it's a little bit toasty from some of those darker malts we mentioned just a minute ago. We can get a little bit of esters coming through this. This can be low, but a prominently estery beer. And a little bit of alcohol can come through as well. It doesn't have to be there, but it's perfectly fine. Now, I'm going to take that pin out of that aged version. What does it mean to smell the age? What I smell is the hops have fallen off, and what that means is, think about a bag of salad that you get from the store, and it's fresh green, just straight from the farm. Maybe it's farmer's market, and you have this green salad, and it's just fresh. It's beautiful. You can't wait to eat it. As opposed to that salad that is, we better eat it tonight because otherwise I'm going to throw it out tomorrow. That's the age of the salad that we've all kind of experienced. That's the impression I get when I'm smelling the hops out of this beer, and the malt turns a little bit bronze. If bronze were a flavor, think of the bronze being a flavor. Get a little bit more honey, a little bit more. I'm sorry, I'm losing the word for it now, but you can just tell it's just kind of turned a little bit old and just not quite as fresh and lively. That's what I smell. So let's talk about what this tastes like, what this beer tastes like, and I'll translate that into the age as well.
Yeah, so we both have two different commercial styles. And so what Jeremy said, though, for what you're expecting to get in the style guidelines, and again, Sense of Beer Style covers Beer Judge Certification Program guidelines from 2021. So follow along, right? We go appearance, aroma, flavor, and in order. We're also talking about Red IPA. If those that are, maybe we get some newbies on this very first show, you're picking kind of the middle of the deck for beer styles, but I love it. IPA stands for India Pale Ale. So we're looking for the flavor to be very similar to how Jeremy described the non-advanced age version of the aroma. So medium to very high hop flavor in when I taste it, not just when I smell it. And then medium low to medium clean malty flavors, right? It is more hop than malt for any IPA. That should be a standard. But you're going to get up to medium medium malt flavor. And then we want medium high to very high bitterness. That's what makes this an IPA, in addition to the enhanced ethanol or alcohol. Otherwise, we would be talking about maybe an amber ale. So this is an amber ale that's a little bit bigger in body, in malt, in alcohol, and bigger in bitterness. But you're still looking for a dry to medium dry finish. That's a big aspect of this. And most IPAs, I would hope, have that. Certainly some IPAs are sweeter in the finish. I want them to be drier. And you can also get, because this is an ale, meaning fermented with ale yeast as opposed to lager yeast, you could optionally get some esters, some fruity esters, some stone fruit, some overripe or underripe, depending, low hints of those red and stone fruit type of flavors from the esters, but it's optional. And then, the malt is not supposed to overshadow. It is more of a hop driven beer, but that is the big differentiator in the flavor compared to aroma.
Yeah. And so this show, because of this beer that I happen to have grabbed, we're basically getting a two for show. So here's what the beer ought to be, and then here's a beer with age. So as far as flavor goes, if I can tag on to that, when we get an aged beer, and particularly hoppy beers are fantastic to assess age on because hops don't last that long. What I'm tasting in the flavor is the hops aren't quite as prominent. They certainly don't taste fresh and lively and smooth and balanced. They taste a little like that brown or like that salad that we need to throw out, or either eat it or throw it out tomorrow. Where you get the same kind of sense of the hop freshness in that same regard. And with the malt, it almost turns a little bit cloying, a little bit honey-like. And again, think of bronze as a flavor. It kind of turns to that kind of brown, sweet kind of sensation.
And Jeremy, I want to jump in and bring this back around to what you're describing is no fault of Ninkasi in that commercial example.
Correct.
So it's important in beer, store your beer cold. Don't store it just in the pantry. Put it in the fridge, please. And what Jeremy's describing, the brewer had a shelf life. The brewer had an intended time frame where this beer that's meant to be enjoyed fresh. That's the investment in hops. That's why we pay much more for hoppier beers, is supposed to display at what they would, Ninkasi or any other brewer would require within that date range. So yeah, a lot of beers can be aged and stored, but really hop-centric beers, and Jeremy's talking about how it also is affecting the malt, you want to drink them more fresh and sooner rather than later.
Yeah. In fact, if I had my choice, I'd drink any IPA, but especially this one within the first 3 months, if not sooner, just because of that freshness. So thank you for saying that. Yes, this is not a fault in the beer. This is not a fault in the brewery or the brewer. This is just a thing that happens. It's like your bananas turn brown if you don't eat them quick enough. It happens.
Right.
So when we kind of take this this beer style, let's talk about what the beer style ought to be in terms of mouthfeel. When this is fresh and in great shape and just delightful, we should have this medium low to medium body, a smooth texture, a medium to medium high carbonation that just kind of adds a nice little balance to that smooth texture. But this beer and any beer should never be harsh. There should never be a harshness that makes you think it's aggressive or overly challenging. To kind of challenge your pun intended, your sense of style is one thing, but a beer that challenges you and whether you want to drink it or not is not ideal. And lastly, this beer could have no alcohol warming, or it could have a low alcohol warming. Depends on the alcohol content and your perception of it. One other thing, since I happen to have an aged sample, one of the things you'll notice too is we've talked about the aroma, we've talked about the flavor. One thing I notice in particularly hoppy beers that have gone a little too long is you get this. I've heard people describe it as like a grippiness on the side of your tongue. And for anyone who's ever worked with wood and sandpaper, that sort of stuff, I just have this vision of very fine grit sandpaper, like a 600 grit sandpaper that's just kind of tapping the sides of my tongue, and where you just kind of have this. It's almost like a sense of texture.
I would describe that as tannins, right? A grippiness, right? From oak aging in the barrel, from hops. Hops have tannins. The husk of malt have tannins. It's polyphenols. It brings to the table that drier astringency and that grippiness on the tongue.
Yeah, but as a beer ages, it turns less pleasant than when it's fresh. And so you'll have to just taste beers to understand exactly what that means. I'm describing it as best I can, but that's mouthfeel of both a perfect example and the aged example that I happen to have in front of me. So uh, let's talk about style comparison.
And I did kind of touch upon it that the amber ale compared to this
Hmm.
specialty IPA, the red ale is going to be this red ale is going to be stronger, hoppier, more bitter than the American amber ale. So that's already in your mind. Definitely taste them side by side. That's a great way to calibrate. It's not as malty and as sweet as an American strong ale, but I love a good American strong ale. It's important to note those are probably the two closest to me in differentiation. So it's harder to blind taste test an American strong ale compared to a red ale, or forgive me, than a red IPA. With those two together, they're very, very close. So you'll notice that if you're testing it. And then it's drier, less alcohol, not as malty as American barley wine. Another super fun one to have in the mix. We've got ourselves a great tasting to really try with these. And lastly, less chocolate and caramel than a brown IPA, but very similar to most other IPAs, minus probably the Brute IPA in terms of body.
Yeah. As far as commercial examples go, the ones we can look out for, if you see anything that says Red IPA, grab it, taste it, learn it, love it. But the ones that are iconic and mentioned in the guidelines, we're talking Avery Hog Heaven, and then Cigar City out in Tampa, Florida. They've got the Tocobega Red IPA. I hope I pronounced that right. But Modern Times, Blazing World, and Trogs Nugget Nectar. That's a classic. Still waiting to get my hands on one of those, but nonetheless, that is still classic in the world of beer. And just to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting, Ninkasi Brewing in Eugene, Oregon, is an incredible brewery, and this beer that happens to be aged right now as we're recording this Dawn of the Red, is one of my favorite all-time red IPAs. So I have. So if you find this when you're in Oregon, make sure you grab that. It's delicious. Um, that's all I have to say about the commercial examples. And do you want to show yours, Julia? Want to talk about that one?
Nope, I can get to vital statistics. I mean,
Okay.
it's Red IPA, Finkel and Garf. I do think I appreciate that they are right down the street, and I got a 6-pack of it, and I'm enjoying it very much. And they really market it as Red IPA. So I said
Yes.
nope, but there I go. I did
Yeah.
indulge. And in terms of vital statistics, if you memorize your American IPA stats, this is super, super similar. Just slight differences. So American IPA and this red IPA is 5.5 to 7.5 alcohol by volume. Really easy to remember that range.
Hmm.
Final gravity goes a touch higher than American IPA, 1008 to 1016. And that is just a touch higher than American IPA. 1056 for original gravity to 1070 is a range that's also American IPA centric. So that's perfect for red IPA to also have memorized. And then international bitterness units is also right there, 40 to 70, very similar to American IPA. And then SRM, or standard reference method, is 11 to 17. So if you go to look up European vital statistics for other style examples, we use the Brewers Association World Beer Style Guidelines often. They actually don't have a red IPA in the mix. In looking it up earlier and prepping from the show, double hoppy red ale is one of them, and then also imperial red ale. So there's really no exact example, but the Beer Judge Certification Programs is not busy listing for y'all the alcohol by weight and the Platos. So Jeremy usually fills in, but don't feel like when you're studying for that you have to know it, unless those are the versions of numbers that you're used to.
Well, and all these numbers that we have, it's kind of like, I think of it as a moving target. I mean, at some point we have to put a number on the page just to communicate what it is we're talking about. So all of these numbers we talk about are not set in stone. It's not like if they're outside of the range, it's wrong. No. All this stuff is just giving you a sense of where we are, a sense of beer style, hence the name. But when we talk about the EBC, or European Brewery Convention, again, just double the SRM, we're looking at 22 to 34. For original gravities or original Plato, we're looking at 14 to 17 and a half. Final gravity, 2 to 4. And for those people who who don't think in terms of ABV, they think in terms of Plato as far as their alcohol is concerned, then we're looking at 12 to 13 and a half. So just to keep all that in mind. But I'm going to talk about the glass and the temperature because this is an American beer style that really emerged from my memory, my experience in the late 2000s, early teens. I really started seeing the Red IPA. They were still being served in shaker pints. So if you see them in a shaker pint, just drink it, just enjoy it. These days, hopefully, more places are having better glasses. I prefer this in a no-neck pint, to be honest, because this is more reminiscent of a British IPA or a British bitter, just more with the American ingredients. So I really do like a no-neck pint for this. It really helps hold the beer, holds the foam initially, and just makes it a delightful drinking experience. Temperature-wise, because this has more malt and a little bit more color, I want this to warm up to 43, 45 degrees Fahrenheit or maybe 5 to 7 degrees Celsius. I want this to open up a little more. I will drink this cold, but I will keep my hand on the glass and warm it up because as I sip through this beer, if I'm paying attention, I will notice that the beer changes every time I take a sniff and every time I take a sip. And it's really cool to experience that. So I recommend everyone try that. But most importantly, let's talk about food pairings.
Food pairings, thanks for the baton pass. And it's an easy one to me. We haven't brought it up in a couple of shows, Jeremy. I would love this with some really, really beautifully made tacos, right? And the type of protein in there could be a variety of things. You have everything from pork shoulder. Forgive me if you are vegetarian side, I certainly respect that. To beef tacos, to kind of grilled chicken tacos. I could see so many synergies with that and some of the toppings. I would love the idea of this matched up with some of those kind of spices that go into taco meat too, or any protein that you're making. Fried tofu, let's go for that, right? And the cumin is eliciting some flavors that would, I think, find its way to some of these advanced amber malt and also some of the kind of American style hops. So I'm going with tacos, and I think it's going to be perfect with them. I want to fry my tortillas in some oil because this beer's got enough girth to like match up to something. So a little bit of richness. It's going to find its way to the maize and the corn kind of mesa in that tortilla. So corn tortillas, not flour for me. Thank you very much. And I'm there.
And just a little shout out to all the vegetarians out there, having this with a grilled portobello with all those seasonings that you just mentioned would just be delicious with this beer. I don't want anything too spicy just because this is hoppy, that is bitter, and that can potentiate into an experience that I don't love, but to each his and her own. I could even see doing some really good grilled butternut squash tacos in the same manner, and that would just be fantastic. For me, I do love meat, so I'm going to go there. I love fish and chips with this. This beer would be just a classic. Aged cheddar would be incredible with this. I had the epiphany earlier today. I was thinking, I haven't had a good savory scone in a long time, and I'll bet that would be just amazing, especially with a little bit of cumin in that scone or in this beer would be great. Ham and cheese croissant or, anything like that, where it's just, there's that sweet, there's that savory, and I need that sweet to bridge, and I need that hop to kind of add an extra flavor. Just would be incredible.
I love it. That, I think we nailed it in pairings because I'm always hungry and thirsty after each show, even when I'm drinking. But that's it. That's your Red IPA with Julia and Jeremy, Sense of Beer Style. Just want to say thank you so much for listening and good beers to you.
Thank you for listening to A Sense of Beer Style, the essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. With advanced Cicerones, me, Julia,
and me, Jeremy.
Tune into the next episode as we continue exploring the world of beer styles and what to make of them. We encourage you to listen to the prepisodes to build your foundation and better understand beer styles.
And before the next episode, I'd like to ask you to review the show and let us know what you'd like featured in upcoming episodes. Until next time, here's to you and your sense of beer style. Thank you for listening. Cheers.